You know, it's been an insane couple hours for myself. This all started last night with Forbidden Door. Obviously starts at 8 o'clock, doesn't get over till 12. I'm doing my post-show review until 1:30. I don't get to bed until 2. I don't get to sleep until 2:30. I'm debating with myself, you know, there's still being moves going on with the NBA free agency. Paul George is still in talk with the Philadelphia 76ers in California. Should I stay up? Is something going to happen? I decided not to. I decided not to stay up because I needed to sleep. I had to get up super early in the morning to go take my brother to work. So that's what I had to do. Then I wake up at 7 o'clock this morning and my phone's dead. For some reason, my phone is dead. My phone was off the charger and it was dead. So I had to charge it. Got the phone at 7:20. First thing I did was go on Twitter. Try to go on Twitter until my dad texted me a link that Paul George has signed with the Philadelphia 76ers. Holy shit. They actually did it. And it was a move that they had to do. This is their last prayer to win a championship in the process era. Because now the Sixers have signed Paul George to a 4-year, $212 million contract. And he really didn't have any options. You know, last week there was a potential rumor floating out that Paul George was going to be involved in a sign and trade deal with the Golden State Warriors, and the Clippers were like, yeah, we don't really want to trade you to the Golden State Warriors, though. So then they kept being in negotiation talks, and they couldn't move forward with anything. And, what was holding them back was the fact that they didn't want to give Paul George a 4th year. They didn't want to give him another $50 million something dollars, which I think is completely dumb if you were the Los Angeles Clippers, because if you're the Clippers, right, and you're still trying to contend for a championship in a stacked Western Conference, why would you not want to give Paul George an extra year? That just doesn't make sense to me at all. And that was the reason why they didn't want to pay Paul George. They end up giving James Harden a 2-year contract worth $70 million, $35 million a season for James Harden. They ended up signing Derrick Jones Jr. from the Dallas Mavericks. So they're still trying to contend, but they're going down pretty fast. I don't think they're going to be contending for much longer. I think the fan base is ready for a fresh start. Maybe the fan base for the Clippers is happy that Paul George is no longer on the team, and that he's in Philly, and maybe they're happy about that. So, with that in mind, there was 2 teams left. It was the 76ers and the Orlando Magic. And when the Orlando Magic paid Kadavius Caldwell-Pope a $66 million deal with 3 years, it was over. It was over. There was no other options for Paul George. It was Philadelphia and Philadelphia only. And they got the job done. And the clip of Joel Embiid and Paul George on the NBA Countdown show in the NBA Finals is going to be a video that is played for potentially years if this goes somewhere huge, where the biggest way this could go is them winning a championship, obviously. So if that indeed happens, the video of Joel Embiid saying, we need, more depth, make some changes, whatever he was saying, and then he gave Paul George a side eye. Um, that video is going to be saved forever, in Sixers history, with both of them on the countdown show and Joel Embiid giving Paul George the side eye. Now, I'm not even going to get into promotions and promoting my channel. I'll do that after. I'll do that after we get into everything, because we don't have just Paul George to talk about. We have more to talk about, because so far, Daryl Morey has hit a home run. And he's hit a home run in this free agency period. They get Paul George. They get Eric Gordon. They get Andre Drummond as the new backup center. They re-signed Kelly Oubre. And last week, they drafted Jared McCain out of Duke, who is a great three-point shooter, and he can score if you need him to. Now, I don't expect Jared McCain to start in his first year under the Philadelphia 76ers. He is a project for many years to come, and I don't expect him to be I don't expect him to be a starter in his first year. I do think down the road, the pairing of Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain is going to be a great thing. And that's another thing that happened too. The Tyrese Maxey extension, kid absolutely deserves it. We'll probably talk about that last. But the first thing we got to talk about is Paul George. And I remember I sat here after the Sixers had lost Game 6 to the New York Knicks at home. And I did my season review video. And I talked about the all-season. And I'm like, the Sixers, next year is their last chance to win a championship. In the process era, in the Joel Embiid era, this is their last chance. And I sat here and I said, what won't help them win a championship is signing Paul George to a max contract. Now, what do I mean by that? I don't think, hopefully, the responsibility for Paul George is not to be the top scorer. Obviously, he's not going to. But if we brung Paul George in and we asked him to be our number one option, hey, you're the number one option on the team. You are the guy we want carrying all that stuff. We want you to be the backbone of this team. You need to be, you need to be the captain. I don't think Paul George would be able to do that. Do I think Paul George is capable of helping the Sixers get to where they need to be? Yes. Yes, I do. And he could play like the big three role. This is not like the Phoenix Suns where they threw it together in the last minute. Bradley Beal, they signed him to a monster contract, and they're like, let's put KD, Booker, and Bradley Beal on the floor together, and let's see how it goes. Meanwhile, they never had a true point guard on their team, and I feel like that's kind of what ruined the gem for the Phoenix Suns last year. They ended up getting smoked in the first round by the Minnesota Timberwolves, and now there's a ton of questions in that franchise going on into this season. They fired Frank Vogel, and now they're going for a new coach. I think they probably hired a new coach. I don't remember who it was. My apologies. But this is a big three that makes sense. You have probably the best center in the NBA when he's healthy, down the paint, in Joel Embiid. He's capable of shooting the threes, but he's also a monster down the paint where he's able to get a hook shot onto in the basket. He's able to get fouls against the opponent. He's able to get himself to the free throw line, and he's able to create 3-point plays in the paint. So you have that aspect, and if there's nights that there's the double teaming Embiid in the paint, and you got to kick it out to some of the guys, you have an elite point guard, an elite established point guard at 23 years old in Tyrese Maxey, which is just crazy to say that they have an established point guard at 23 years old. That's absolutely insane. Tyrese Maxey, who can give you 30 points any night. And then Joel can also kick it out to Paul George, who's an elite wingman. He shot 45% from catch and shoot threes last year, averaged 22 points a game, played 74 games last year, which is a huge factor for him. That is huge. If you tell me that going into this season, first season with Paul George in the Sixers uniform, that we're going to get Paul George for 70-plus games out of 82, I would sign that immediately. I would be down for that immediately. And Paul George is honestly coming off a great season. I wouldn't say great, but Paul George is coming off a really good season. You give me 70-plus games. You give me the defense that he has. Now, granted, he's not as good of a defender as he was when he was on the Indiana Pacers and the Oklahoma City Thunder. But my guy is still a good defensive player in the NBA. He's still a good, capable defensive wing in the NBA. And that's what we need. We need size. We need guys that can go up there, wings that can go up there and not be afraid, like Tobias Harris. And wings that just don't stand at the corner and wait for a three, like Tobias Harris. We are going to find out very quickly the upgrade that it was to go from Tobias Harris to Paul George. We're going to find out in the first 20 games of the season how vastly of a difference it is seeing Tobias Harris to then seeing Paul George. That is going to be a huge, huge difference. And by the way, what did I say in the all-season video? Tobias Harris can go bye-bye. He can go kick rocks. And he can go play basketball at Detroit and be on the worst team in the NBA. And he can suck in Detroit. What happens? Detroit signs Tobias Harris to a 2-year, $52 million deal. My goodness, overpay city for Tobias Harris. Goodbye. Get the fuck out of here, Tobias. So happy that he is gone. So we're going to find out very quickly how big of an upgrade Paul George is over Tobias Harris in like the first 20 games of the season. It's something that I do want to touch on about, and this goes back to the last offseason where we had to be patient. The Sixers didn't have cap space. Why? Because of the Tobias Harris contract. We had to be patient as Sixers fans. We had to wait until this offseason. When Tobias Harris' contract's over, he's gone. We had to wait one more year. And yes, Tobias Harris was the majority of the blame as to why we were not as successful last year. Because, when we asked him to be our number 3 guy, the number 3 scorer on this team, he folded like a lawn chair. He folded. And I'll tell you what, there's been times where Paul George has failed in the playoffs, and Paul George has never won an NBA championship, but Paul George has had his moments, and he has had his moments with the Los Angeles Clippers. Fast forward, rewind back 3 years ago in that series against the Utah Jazz. They're down 2-0 to Donovan Mitchell and the Utah Jazz. They come back, they beat them in 6 games, and Paul George was a big reason why the Clippers were able to make the comeback in that series, down 2-0. And Paul George led the Clippers in 2021 to the conference finals. Now, the reason they didn't get to the NBA finals that year was because Kawhi Leonard went down with an injury, and Devin Booker just went on an absolute insane run in the postseason, and Chris Paul was low-key a top 10 player in the NBA that season. So that's why the Clippers weren't able to get to the finals under Paul George that year. But this is baby steps. We need baby steps. It's been 23 years. It's been since 2001, which was the last time the 76ers were in the conference finals. 2001. So, before we get to an NBA championship, before we get to the finals, before we potentially win the NBA championship, we need to start with, as Sixers fans, at least for me, we need to start with this as the goal. Obviously, we want to see the Sixers win the NBA finals. Of course we do. But we have to start here. Start at the conference finals and get our way up. Because Joel Embiid has never played in a conference finals before. And, I think it's not done yet. The all season's not done yet, I think, for the 76ers. There can still be improvement. But this will probably be the best team Joel Embiid has ever had in his career. With Tyrese Maxey and Paul George and the other additions and bringing back some players, this will probably be the best team Joel Embiid has had around him in his entire career. So, Paul George is officially a Philadelphia 76er. And you know what? At the end of the day, I'm happy about it. It's a move that they had to make. It's a move that they needed. They needed to do this because they had the most cap. They had the second to most cap space in the NBA next to the Detroit Pistons. And they had to go literally all in. Like, this is their last chance. And Daryl Morey, credit to him because he's having a hell of an offseason so far. He ain't sleeping. This is great. This is probably, and he was the biggest name in free agency. This was the biggest move any team could make, was go out there and get the biggest free agent name possible. And the biggest free agent name was Paul George going into this offseason. And the Sixers and Daryl Morey were able to sign Paul George. Now, let's talk about some other moves. Let's get the Kelly Oubre move out of the way. They signed him to a player extension. They signed him to a 2-year, $16.3 million deal. Now, I thought Kelly Oubre had a good season last year. I thought Kelly Oubre didn't really have much in the playoffs. Like he would have 19 or 17. There'd be games where he had 8, but in the regular season, Kelly Oubre was better than us Sixers fans expected him to be, considering they signed him to a cheap contract last year. And honestly, this deal's not that bad either. You're paying him $8 million a year. You're not throwing the bank at him. You're not giving him $40 million. $40 million for 4 years or whatever. It's a nice 2-year deal worth $16.3 million. Now, is Kelly Oubre going to be a starter? Are they paying him to be a starter? Or are they paying him to come off the bench? I don't know. We will have more of a clear idea where he will be in this rotation when the free agency is almost over. Right now, it is just getting started. So, by next week, we could have an idea where he would be in this starting 5. But I like the fact that they brought him back. I think if they lost Kelly Oubre in this offseason, I think that would have been a big loss for the 76ers. And I'm happy that they retained him. I'm happy that they got Kelly Oubre back. He's tough. He's a nice wing defender. He was doing great defensively on Jalen Brunson for the first 2 games of the playoffs until Brunson just absolutely took off. He just took off in the other 4 games of that series. But Oubre is a good wing defender. There's nights where he could give you 25. We've seen it in the regular season. So, I mean, I'm happy with the move to bring back Kelly Oubre. I think it would have been a big loss if they had not re-signed him and he went somewhere else. That would have been that would have had to been you going out and get a replacement for Kelly Oubre. I'm glad they didn't have to do that. He fits in the Nick Nurse system well. And, he talked about in the offseason interview on Clean Out Locker Day how Nick Nurse is probably the best coach that he's ever played under. And now we have Kelly Oubre in a Sixers uniform for 2 more years. Very happy about that. Let's talk about Eric Gordon. This is a deal that I really like. And if this was a deal that happened 4 years ago, I would have absolutely loved it. I would have loved this deal with Eric Gordon, but for what he is now, I like it. He is a bench piece. I don't see him being in the starting lineup, but this move was made to replace Buddy Hield. I'm convinced by that. Buddy Hield will not be coming back on the Philadelphia 76ers this year. This move and the Kelly Oubre signing proves it. And I like this, even though Eric Gordon's 35 years old. He's still a really damn good shooter. He's good from 3, and he's not afraid to sling it. And I'll tell you what's not going to happen is come the spring and come playoff time, when last year was the first year Buddy Hield's ever played in a playoff series, and the man folded like a lawn chair in the postseason. The lights were too bright for him, and it got to the point where if he was awful. Buddy Hield was awful in the postseason for the Philadelphia 76ers, and 1 game does not clean all that up. 1 game doesn't mean anything. Yes, he went off in that first half in the last game of the series in Game 6. But that doesn't justify anything that happened in Game 1, Game 2, Game 3, and the other 2 games he sat out. Doesn't justify it, but you know who's not going to fold in the playoffs? You know who's not going to be afraid of the moment? Eric Gordon. Why? Because he's been there. He's done that. He's played in an NBA Finals. It's just exactly like Cam Payne. And that's another guy that I hope the Sixers bring back. I hope they're able to find a way to bring back Cameron Payne on this team. But, you know, I like this Eric Gordon signing for what it is. It's a minimum deal. I think it's like worth $3 million or something like that. But it's a nice, cheap deal for a guy that can still sling it at his age. And I'm excited for that. I'm excited for that. For Eric Gordon. I don't expect him to be a starter, and I wouldn't want him to be a starter on this team. But for what it is, he's 35 years old. We got 1 year of Eric Gordon, and he's much better than Buddy Hield is. And he's not going to crumble in the playoffs like Buddy Hield did. Andre Drummond. I hope this means goodbye, Paul Reed. B-Ball Paul was a fan favorite in 2023. B-Ball Paul wasn't that bad in 2023, but we need size and we need a backup center who can come in there, fucking rebound the basketball, and when Joel Embiid comes out the game, we need the team to not go down to minus fucking 7,500 with Joel Embiid out the game, and then Joel Embiid in the game, they're plus 6,500 or whatever it is. I like this. Andre Drummond's been here before. We, as Sixers fans, wanted Andre Drummond last year in the trade deadline. The Bulls weren't willing to trade away Andre Drummond for draft picks, which I think was dumb on their part. I think that's another stupid ran franchise in the NBA. They have no fucking clue what they're doing. This is a good move. And no disrespect to B-Ball Paul, but I hope this means we're able to get him off to another team, and because he's not the type of backup center that we're looking for. We got another center that we drafted from UCLA, and I'm good with this, with Andre Drummond, because we don't need a tall, skinny backup center who can't get rebounds in the postseason. We need a big NBA body, guy who dominates the paint, guy who bullies his way in the paint, and somebody who does that is Andre Drummond. Now, you're not going to see them playing side. You're not going to see Andre Drummond and Joel Embiid play with each other side by side in the playoffs because Joel Embiid's going to be playing 40 minutes a night. So you might be seeing Andre Drummond for 8 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever it may be. But I don't think Andre Drummond is going to be as bad as B-Ball Paul was in the postseason this year. And with the state of the Sixers, we don't need a young center like Paul Reed who gets dominated in the postseason. We don't got time for that. So if Paul Reed is off the team, I do wish him the best, but it is time to move on from him. And this move, I'm a fan of. I'm a fan of the Andre Drummond move, and I think him coming in the Embiidless minutes, I hope it's good for the team. And then finally, Tyrese Maxey. Kudos to the young 23-year-old who signed a 5-year, $205 million contract, $41 a year for Tyrese Maxey. Absolutely deserves it. The kid has just gotten better and better and better every season. We asked a lot out of Tyrese Maxey. When James Harden was here, at 22 years old, we asked him to be the third scorer on the team. We need you as our number 3 option on this team, behind Joel and James. We need Tyrese Maxey to step up at points, and he was able to do that for us. What he did this past postseason in a couple games, particularly Game 5 against the Knicks, was special. And at that point, we already knew that he deserved an extension. But we as Sixers fans were like, give it to him now. Give this extension to Tyrese Maxey right now. And the kid absolutely deserves it. He's a top 5 point guard in the Eastern Conference. You'd say Tyrese, no particular order. You'd say Tyrese Maxey, Jalen Brunson, Tyrese Halliburton, Damian Lillard, and Trae Young. Those are the 5. Dame, Trae Young, Tyrese Halliburton, Jalen Brunson, and Tyrese Maxey. Those are the top 5 point guards in the Eastern Conference. So at age 23, for him to be the way that for him to play like he does, how quick he is, his speed on the court. He was an all-star this year. Tyrese Maxey was an all-star at age 23. It's incredible, man. It's incredible. And I'm so happy. So happy that we were able to get this extension and Tyrese staying in the 76ers for a long time. But that's all I got, man. That's all I got. Over 30 minutes of breaking down everything that happened yesterday with the Sixers offseason. And there could be more. There could be more moves made for the 76ers. We'll see what happens. And if there's any more big moves that are made, of course, I'll be here talking about it here on the Big Fight Fuel channel. So thank you all so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel. Comment down below all your thoughts on the moves that the Sixers made, particularly the Paul George signing. PG-13. He's here, baby. I'm excited to see him, and hopefully he's able to be a key contributor in the chase for an NBA championship. For a fun fact, I saw a tweet. On FanDuel Sportsbook, the 76ers have the 3rd highest odds to win the NBA championship. Stop it. Stop it. I never thought I'd see that. So that's exciting. Comment down below your thoughts on all this. Hit the like button if you like what you heard from me. And follow me on Twitter at Colin_Joseph. And I'm getting out of here. Thank you all so much. I will see you in the next video. Have a good night. Stay safe. And as always, stay classy. And let's go Sixers. I'm out. Peace.